I'm Sue Gunningham, and I was born and raised in Northcote area, and I moved around a little after I married. I went up to Lancefield, and then back to Northcote, and then out to Greensborough, and I eventually met Barry, my partner, when I came to work in my very first teaching job at Whittlesea Primary School. He was a teacher too, and that was in 1990. And I don't think I had ever been this far up Plenty Road in my life. I did a teaching round once at when I was studying to be a teacher at Plenty Valley Christian, and I thought that was behind God's back. And then when I got my first posting, and it was Whittlesea, good God, I thought I have to take packed lunch and so. Yeah.
So what were your first impressions of the town at that point?
Well, I was amazed because Greensborough was like the end of the world, built up, and then when I worked out how to come along Yan Yan Road and then around onto Plenty Road past the reservoir, I couldn't believe there were like so many paddocks and fields and cows and everything, like just out the back of Greensborough. Really, over time, you become more familiar with that it's perhaps not so far. But I used to, in the morning when I would drive from Greensborough to get to school, I would pull over on Plenty Road often and just sit, enthralled at the view across the fields early in the morning, with the mist rising and the dams, small dams there. I don't mean the Yan Yan Dam, I mean the ones the farmers put in for their cows, and it was just so beautiful and idyllic. And people like I was then in Greensborough, if you were going to go to the country, you would head towards Bendigo or somewhere. You'd go far out, some place that you'd heard about, and it had never dawned on me that the country was so close out the back of Greensborough. So yeah, it was just beautiful. It was I didn't kind of need to even debrief or anything after school. Just that drive home was so lovely. Yeah, and people used to talk about, they still do, the dancing trees along Plenty Road at Mernda there, which was so lovely. Yeah. So
tell me about the dancing trees.
Oh, it's just the gum trees there kind of seem to lean out across the road towards each other as if they're, forming an arch and dancing with each other. It's just so lovely. Yeah. So yeah, I was amazed. And then when I got to Whittlesea Primary, all the schools that I'd done teaching rounds at beforehand were all like Thomastown and Laylord near Greensborough. And when we talked about pets, I can remember that was the biggest shock first year at Whittlesea Primary, because at teaching rounds, when they had pets or pet parade or something, the kids used to bring budgies and guinea pig and maybe a dog. And the first year I was at Whittlesea, that primary, they had pet parade, and people showed up with horses and cows and ducks, and I was terrified for the whole day. I just couldn't go outside the classroom because there are all these like wild animals out there. But it was, again, it was so different too, and yet just, I don't know how many kilometres, what is it, about 20 kilometres down the road there, and it was like another world, but just so wonderful. Yeah, I really loved it. Yeah, and what else did I know? We used to do a lot of walking tours around. The kids all lived on acreage too. That amazed me. Yeah, because I had my two sons. They were in primary school when I first started teaching up here, and the teachers had this idea to teach the kids to be more responsible. They were given a duckling. I don't think they might have had, the ducks might have hatched at school or something, but they were given a duckling and they had to babysit it or something. It was terrible. Anyway, my son that son took a liking to the duck, and we got stuck with it and in Greensboro, what do you do with the duck? And it was so wonderful. I came to school at Whittlesea and I said, I've got this duckling that was still yellow, but it started to grow those white feathers, looked like a mess. And I just said in the class at Whittlesea, I've got this one duck and it's a very lonely little duckling, and I was wondering if anybody knows if their family would let them have a duckling. Anyway, I had lots of parents show up the next day. It was so wonderful. I said, yeah, we'll take the duckling, we'll take that home. So it was a big relief. Otherwise, I would have had to learn how to cook duck. But that was the nice thing about Whittlesea, all the bazaar. And I remember because I was, ignorant, stupid, but I couldn't, to my shame, I thought I would teach the kids environmental stuff at Whittlesea about saving the world, and I decided I'd start with saving water, to save water. It shows how ignorant I was. And I ran a homework thing, part of it, and I said to the kids, I want you to when you clean your teeth, I want you to put the plug in the hand basin and see how much water actually is used when you clean your teeth. And I prided myself that was going to revolutionise the world, because the kids would see, oh my God, I use a litre or something. And I was so full of myself. And the next day, one of the parents of the kids in my grade came, I don't think storming in, because they would have realised I was an idiot, but the mum came in and said that did I realise that they were on tank water, and asking her son to leave the tap running while he cleaned his teeth was like just the most dreadful thing that I could do, because her children ever since birth they'd been taught you never leave the tap running when you clean your teeth. And so I learned very quickly that I was living in a different planet here. But yeah, to my shame, thereafter I realised that there's knowledge that is not necessary for the country people to be taught, because they've been doing that for years. It's the city people and me, of course. Anyway, you live and you learn, don't you? But yeah.
Were there other differences between the schools that you noticed?
We actually, there were lots in it. The parents were, I think at Whittlesea, they were much more prepared for their kids to do all kinds of hands-on things, learn all kinds of hands-on things, which I really loved as well. So that I came up another time with the idea that we would see what it was like to make mud bricks. And the principal was very accommodating, and the parents let their kids come in raggy, baggy clothes. And for about 3 weeks, we spent a couple of hours every day down the back of the school digging a big hole in the ground, I might add, to get the mud out, and straw. And we made enough mud bricks that we made a little cottage for the preps to play in, just high enough. So it was very exciting. And then another time, I was teaching grade 3 or grade 4, all about the digestive system and the body and everything. And one of the boys came to school one day with a green plastic bag, and he said, "Oh, my dad has sent you a present." And I said, "Oh, that's very kind," thinking, I wonder, why would he do that? And I took it into the room, and all the kids gathered around. I opened the plastic bag, and the father had very kindly sent me a pig's head cut in half so that we could have a look at the brain and all the goop. I just passed out. It's like, I'm in Whittlesea. Yeah.
How long were you teaching Whittlesea?
I was at the primary for about 6 years, and then I went over and taught at the secondary school for a couple of years as well, and then I went down to Thomastown or somewhere or other. But yeah, it was about 8 years all up, I suppose. Yeah. no, it was wonderful. And that was when I met Barry and got to go to his cottage up in Hume Vale that we lost in the fires along with Barry. And even that was terrifying for me because I got lost almost every time I went up there because the road winds round and round and round. And it was all those trees. It's not so treed after the fires, but the trees crowding in all around on either side, and every bend looked like every other bend in the road until I worked out to count how many bends before we get there, because the house wasn't visible from the road. But it used to have forest all the way around the house close up, and Barry used to have a wire enclosure where he threw seed for birds. And again, the first time I went to his house and I parked the car and I hopped out, about 1,000,000 gazillion birds all lifted up from the ground, all, every colour like a rainbow. It was amazing. And I'm not a good, namer of birds, but it frightened me to death, of course, because they came every night for the feed, and then, I'd arouse them and they took off into the sky. It was just amazing, yeah. And then he used to hand feed possums. I've actually had possums at Grantsbury, but they run along the electricity wires, but up in the forest they run, throughout the trees and across the roofs. And then there was a wallaby once that used to come down and be hand fed at the door as well. It was like living in the zoo here. Parents giving you presents of pig heads and pet parades full of real animals. Yeah. But no, it was very good, very welcoming community at Whittlesea too. It really is country town. Yeah, very. And in a way, it's nice. It's not so hidden now as it used to be, unfortunately. Yeah. Although when you come down Plenty Road, you can still, if you're looking, you can still pull over and look across, and there's enough paddocks and dams to still pick up a sense of it a bit. But that crystal, whatever it is, next to the school, that big estate that runs right down to the water farm thing, wasn't there when I came, so it was all vacant land right through. Because we used to, for the Christmas school holidays, the end of year party at the primary school, we used to walk the kids all the way down to that water slide thing. Yeah, that was all it was in those days, just a big water
fun fields.
Yeah, fun fields, that's right. Yeah, it was only a tiny little thing just with a big slide coming down, but that was, we used to walk the kids down the road down there. They had a very nice tradition, and only the grade sixes were allowed to do it. On the very last day of school, the kids and their teachers just about killed me, but we all were allowed to hop over the back fence of the school. When I say allowed, the principal allowed us. I have no idea whose land that was that we were hopping onto, and we would walk right to the very top of the hill, which was, agonising for me, unfit, and then we would all sit down there and stare out across, the whole of Whittlesea below, and it was some symbolism about, you've reached the top of primary school, but and here's the whole world now stretched out before you. And the kids, they lived for that in the grade six, because you weren't ever allowed outside the school fences during school time, but here you were encouraged to hop over the fence, and we'd all climb up and sit there in silence with the wind beating against us and contemplate the future that lay ahead. Yeah, it was very nice. You couldn't do it now because there's all houses and things up there. Kind of sad, isn't it?
Mm.
I've never come across a school that has had a tradition like that. It was very, I don't know who even invented it, but very symbolic, and the kids couldn't wait to do that. Much better than having a T-shirt saying I'm from the year of 2001 or something, grade 6, but to stumble up there, yeah, it was lovely.
Do you know what happened to any of those kids? What do you remember?
When I went down to the high school, it was a joy for, I know quite lots of them. We went to the high school. One of the boys that I taught, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I was doing parent-teacher interviews, and when it came time for the teachers to have their pizza break at parent-teacher interviews at the high school, the principal came over and said there was a young man who wanted to see me, and it was a boy that he was a good boy. He had a rough, his family life wasn't so great, and he had heard that I was going to be doing parent-teacher interviews that night, and he joined the police force, and he came back as a policeman to show me how he turned out. He didn't have kids at the school or anything. He just, that was, I loved that. And then I've had letters and things from lots of them, but two of my pupils who weren't in love with each other in grade 6, but they finished up marrying each other, and they had 3 babies now, and they have sent me lots of emails and photos of their kids, and then they invited me to they had the opening of the time capsule at the primary school. That was last year, and it was about, I don't know how many years ago we put that in, 25 years ago or something, I suppose. And so that couple asked me, to come down, and it was very nice. They made speeches at the school, and we opened the time capsule, and there were all these, because we only just had computers, and they were those great big font on, like big bits of paper almost with wood in it, wood chips kind of. But anyway, inside our time, because every grade had done something for the thing.
Do you remember what else was in the time capsule?
Well, we'd done a class diary for I thought ours was the best when I saw the time capsule. But and it was what was wonderful. The boy who had contacted me to say, to come to the time capsule thing, his wife is now a teacher as well, and he said that he remembered that time capsule at the time that we put it in. He was so excited by it, and he remembered exactly where it had been buried at the school, and that it was a 25-year thing. And the school, because principals had come and gone, and it's been walls have been knocked down and other things, it's unrecognisable compared to what it was when I started there. But he went down and made contact with the school and said there's a time capsule buried around about, here, where there used to be a wall and now there's not. And anyway, they dug and sure enough there was a time capsule. That was amazing, wasn't it? And it was all because he remembered the excitement with which, he'd done that time capsule. And so, when we opened it up, I thought, gosh, it must have been something absolutely stunning that we did that made him so excited. But it was just about a 2-week diary where I'd put pairs of kids to write about what was happening in our class and who played up and who behaved or something or other. So it was pretty nice though that he'd remembered that. Yeah. And then I was delivering, because I'm a consultant, or was a consultant at schools as well. And last year I went down to do some work with some teachers down in, not Mill Park, but somewhere over that way, and blow me down, one of the teachers was one of the girls that I had in my very first class, the very first year I taught at Whittlesea. And I had a book that she had made, her and another group of kids. I had it in my filing cabinet at home because at the time I was so proud of it, but because it was a group thing I couldn't work out who to give it to, so I kept it myself, and so I was able to give it back to her all those years later. It was wonderful. Yeah. Is it going because it's time?
No, we're not. I think I got an email.
Oh, okay.
I should turn it down.
We went on a school camp, lots of school camps too. It wasn't the first school camp, but when Tom Ward was principal, I took all the kids up to Hall's Gap, and there was a man teacher at the front leading kids. We were all going to walk to the top of some huge mountain there. That's my interpretation of it. And one teacher was at the front. It might have been two male teachers at the front, and I seemed to get stuck at the back with all the kids who were feeling sick and drinking Coca-Cola. Anyway, as you can imagine, the stream of kids got longer and longer and longer and stretched out until when we got to the top, we realised two kids were missing, and they had been in the middle, and they'd gotten to a point where the path, there was a path going across, and they couldn't see people in front of them, and they couldn't see people behind them, and so they turned left when everyone else went up. We had to get the police, and we couldn't find them until about 7 o'clock at night. It was terrible. We all thought we were in the sack. But because they were a boy and a girl too, who had sworn love for each other in grade 6. But they had the sense when they realised they were lost, they went into some farmhouse somewhere, and it was just terrifying. Though I can remember sitting back at the camp with the teachers, because we had to, be with the other kids and leave it up to the police, and the other kids were all hysterical too, that what would happen to them. They're out in the dark at Hall's Gap. I could see my career being very short. But anyway, thank God they found them and everything was all right. And I was then quite proud that they had the sense to go into a farmhouse. So you think, I think I taught them that.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess thinking you alluded to it before, but wondering how your experience of coming from the city into Whittlesea and the community here sort of changed your perspective.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. You realise that a lot of the stuff that happens in the city isn't important in the big picture. Even a lovely garden in the city, it can't compare to those endless paddocks in the morning with the cows and the dams there. It's just beautiful, and it's so, there's no, I don't know, you almost feel like the pressure and the tension leave you that's how I felt when you turn the corner and you're onto Plenty Road, and there it is, the country's rolling out ahead of you, and up ahead is the sadly named Mount Disappointment, that shouldn't be Mount Disappointment at all, because it's just lovely. It's like a beacon ahead, and everything is like a slower pace, and what matters is the real stuff, and people are closer to the earth, closer to like all those animals that came for Pet Parade. They just the ordinary stuff. They're not so worrying about what brand of shoes they're wearing and whether they've got the latest fancy gadget in the kitchen or something. The mums all kind of knew how to cook too, because I used to do a bit of cooking in the class, and the mums would come down and help. We put in my grade again. We wanted to make a nice garden area out the front of our portable classroom, because it was mainly portables up there as the school began to swell, and so I put a call out to the kids through to ask their parents if they had any cuttings, because we were saving the world again we were going to buy the plants, we were going to take them, and it was from cuttings, and it was going to be beautiful. It would be a community kind of thing, and sure enough, we got an abundance of stuff arrived. Even one parent showed up with a pond and a pump. For God's sake, in Melbourne, nobody would give you a little pond and a pump for the garden. And anyway, so and then another father came and said, would we like him to come and show the kids how to build bird boxes? And he came with wood and you know, it was just, they were just wonderful. And whereas probably had I said, no, I don't know, would that be true? Because it was the real stuff, I think. What I was going to say is if I said I wanted someone to come and, I don't know what the equivalent would be now. Well, down this in the city, if I'd have said we're having a community, we're going to build a community garden, I wouldn't have got any cuttings at all. I know that. No one would have given me a pump, and no father would have even been able to have the time to come and build bird boxes. But a lot of the parents, the fathers were working small farms or something, and the mums were doing part-time work or not working at all. Because there were, you know, lots more mums would come and help with things up there too. Yeah, and everybody kind of knew everyone knew the history of stuff too, because it used to be, it's in the school grounds now down near the road. There was an old house there that someone lived in, and the education department didn't own. The school was much smaller, the whole grounds. Very, very old house that an old couple had lived in, and it had all, you know, old plants. We got some cuttings and things out of there as well. But when the old couple died, somehow the education department must have bought the land and the house, and it was eventually demolished, and it became, you know, part of the football ground or something. But I can remember the kids were distressed that the house was being knocked down because it, you know, it had always been there, and, you know, kids don't like things to change. And I took them down one day, that was grade 5, 6, and we went down and sat in the yard of that property. It's on a little bit of a slope down towards the road, and everybody wrote, we did census writing about, okay, for 10 minutes everybody close your eyes and think about, you know, what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can hear, and write wonderful memories of this place before they come in and bulldoze the whole thing down, so that we'll actually have scooped up all the memories that go with this house. Not necessarily, we don't, you know the people's private lives, but we know the flowers, and we know the wood, and we can feel the grass under our bottom, and it was wonderful. Again, it's something I probably wouldn't have done that had I been down in Broadmeadows or Thomastown or something like that. But the kids were kind of distressed about the old house was going to be bulldozed after all the years, and it's like it's part of their history. How does the landscape look if the house isn't there? It'd be like there would be a big hole. So yeah, it was very good. I can't remember what we would have probably published. That was the funny word, isn't it? Published that little book so that everyone would always have the memories of Mrs. Gray's house or something or other. It was called, yeah. Yeah, so that's the main thing about Whittlesea, that the people are much, I don't know how to say it, it's like closer to the ground, closer to what matters, yeah. And they kind of take everything in their stride too, yeah.
So do you spend much time in the town now?
I kind of wasn't even in the town so much there. I was at the school and I was at Barry's, and I'm not a shopper anyway, and there's not very many shops here, so what do you do in the town? You walk up and down the street and buy a pie.
Yeah.
But I like that about Whittlesea too, yeah. But yeah, I'm here frequently up at the property, and even the property is much different now since the fires, because I had to keep all the trees, have all got to be cut right back, so cut back from the house, and the house is much tinier, the replacement house, and the birds, well, even Barry had to stop feeding those birds in the end because feral cats arrived, and there were started to be dead birds under the house. So, but I wouldn't feed the birds anyway. They still terrify me when they're in a big a flock. I think I watch too much Hitchcock, the birds. But even though they're beautiful in colour, there is still one wallaby that comes down the driveway though and ignores me completely when I go out and shout at it. But it was kind of nice Christmas Day. because he usually comes around at dusk, and I know exactly the path he's going to take, and he just stares at me with disdain, and then I shout, go, shoo, shoo, because I don't actually want him too close, but he just looks at me like you're a psycho and goes on to me. But Christmas Day, for some reason, I don't know why, I went outside because, to greet the day, and he was standing in the driveway. So I tried to sing a few choruses of, Six White Boomers. You know that song?
Maybe.
It's was a primary school song, but Six White Boomers on a Christmas Day, because it's about Santa Claus, the reindeers, I don't know, they're ill or something, and how will Santa get all the presents delivered? Well, he gets six white kangaroos to pull the sled. Yeah. Anyway, the wallaby wasn't impressed. Yeah.
Okay, and I think maybe just one last question. What do you think sort of the future will be like in this area, and how things will change?
I think it'll probably finish up like Mernda, which will be so sad, but they'll eventually put the train back on again, because they probably should never have taken the train line out, all of the trains that they've pulled up everywhere. But and it'll cease to be, I'm sure. All those paddocks will disappear under terrible ticky-tacky box houses, and Aldi will move in, Bunnings will build up some huge monstrosity on the side of the road, and we'll lose it again. I touch wood, I won't be around to see that though, because when I take faith in the fact that the housing market is slumping at the moment, so that might buy 5 years or something. But no, that's what will happen. I feel sorry, because it's still managing to be country, and as soon as they bring those ticky-tacky houses along Plenty Road, it'll just be an extension of Mernda and Doreen, and it'd be so sad. That was the other thing I was just thinking, because it's what's happened at the original Mernda school and the old Yan Yin school that used to be down there. That Yan Yin school, I went, because that's not there anymore, but I went there for a curriculum day the first year I was at Whittlesea, and I couldn't believe they had a big cocky in the school, in the schoolroom. It was only 2 classrooms, big cocky walking around everywhere, but that the kids loved, and I was terrified of that too. But eventually they just bulldozed that, and it became a paddock, and now Mernda, the old Mernda school's been bulldozed, and that's turning into housing estate. It's just so sad. And the same will happen here. Yeah. I won't be here to see it. That's good. I'll be 6 feet under. Yeah. And probably Broadford or Kilmore will become the new Whittlesea, or the new country place, I hope.
I'll have to just keep going further and further out.
Yeah. Too sad.
Yeah.
But it's good. I was glad. I was so glad that I was introduced to Whittlesea at the time that I didn't go through life thinking that the only bush is the one up near Bendigo somewhere. What a lovely surprise to find it just out the back of Greensborough, and it had been hiding there all along, and I hadn't known. Yeah.